The ultimatum. Commander Zara Meridian stood at the observation deck of Lunar Station Osiris, watching Earth rotate peacefully below. The blue marble had never looked more vulnerable. In her hand, she clutched a data tablet displaying a message that had arrived exactly 17 minutes ago. A message that would change everything. "Ma'am, the Secretary General is waiting," said Lieutenant Hayes, her voice tight with tension. Zara nodded, her jaw set. The message had come from the Galactic Council, a coalition of 47 alien species that ruled the known universe. For 300 years, humanity had known they existed. For 300 years, the Council had kept Earth in quarantine, observing from a distance, waiting to see if humanity would evolve beyond its violent nature. The waiting was over. Secretary General Marcus Chin appeared on the holographic display, his weathered face grave. Behind him, representatives from every Earth nation flickered into view. This was humanity's first unified war council, though no one dared call it that yet. "Commander Meridian," Chin began, "please share the council's message with the assembly." Zara cleared her throat and began reading. "To the species of Earth, designated as humanity. Your probationary period has concluded. The Galactic Council has observed your civilization with great concern. Your history of warfare, your exploitation of resources, and your aggressive territorial expansion mark you as a Category 5 threat species." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Category 5 was the highest threat classification, reserved for species deemed too dangerous for galactic society. Zara continued. "You are hereby ordered to dismantle all military forces, surrender your nuclear arsenals, and submit to Council oversight. You will be assigned a governing body that will guide your species toward peaceful integration. Failure to comply within 30 solar rotations will result in immediate containment protocols." The holographic chamber erupted. Voices overlapped in a dozen languages, all saying the same thing. This was invasion dressed as diplomacy. President Elena Volkov of the European Federation slammed her hand on her desk. "Containment protocols? What does that mean?" Zara's expression darkened. "According to the database we've compiled from their previous transmissions, containment means they'll establish an energy barrier around our solar system. No one gets in or out. Ever. We'll be prisoners in our own home. And if we resist?" asked Premier Zhang Wei. "Then they'll consider us hostile." Zara paused, weighing her next words carefully. "And hostile Category 5 species are typically eliminated." The silence that followed was suffocating. Secretary General Chin spoke, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. 300 years ago, when we first detected their ships watching us from beyond Neptune, we made a choice. We chose to prepare. Every nation contributed resources to Project Sentinel, building defenses the Council doesn't know about. We hoped we'd never need them." He leaned forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "It appears hope wasn't enough. Commander Meridian, what's your assessment?" Zara had been waiting for this question. She'd spent the last 15 years commanding humanity's secret defense fleet, ships built in the shadows of Saturn's rings, weapons designed by the brightest minds Earth had ever produced. "We have 42 warships fully operational," she reported. "Another 60 in various stages of completion. Our plasma cannon technology exceeds anything the Council used in their last recorded conflict. Our pilots have trained in combat simulations for a decade. We're ready." "Ready to fight 47 species?" Premier Zhang asked skeptically. "Ready to send a message," Zara corrected. "The Council thinks we're primitives with chemical rockets and metal bullets. They have no idea what we've built. They expect submission or extinction. I say we give them neither." Admiral Kwame Osei of the African Alliance nodded slowly. "You're proposing we refuse their ultimatum." "I'm proposing we remind them why humanity survived ice ages, plagues and world wars," Zara said, her voice rising with conviction. "We survive because we don't surrender. We adapt. We fight. We win." Dr. Sarah Kimura, the head of Earth's Xenobiology Institute, raised her hand. "Commander, I must voice my concern. We're talking about species that have mastered faster-than-light travel, gravitational manipulation, and technologies we barely understand. They could destroy us." "They could try," Zara countered. "But here's what Dr. Kimura's own research showed us. The Council hasn't fought a real war in over 800 years. They've grown comfortable, complacent. Their last 3 containments involved species that surrendered immediately. They're bureaucrats with advanced technology, not warriors. And we are?" challenged Ambassador Yuki Tanaka. Zara smiled coldly. "We're the species that split the atom just to see if we could, then used it to end the bloodiest war in our history. We're the species that looked at the empty void of space and decided to conquer it. We're the species that turned our greatest weakness, our inability to agree on anything, into our greatest strength through competition and innovation. She pulled up a star map, showing the Council's territory spanning thousands of light years. They rule through fear and overwhelming force. But they've never faced humanity. They've never faced a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival against impossible odds. Secretary General Chen looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of fear and determination on every face. We need a decision. The Council expects our surrender in 30 days. Do we submit or do we stand? The votes came in quickly. One by one, representatives from every nation on Earth chose the same path. Some voted with trembling hands, others with fierce pride, but the result was unanimous. Humanity would not kneel. As the meeting concluded, Zara returned to the observation deck. Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children had just declared their independence from the galaxy itself. In 30 days, the Council would arrive expecting submission. They would find war instead. Zara activated her communicator. All stations, this is Commander Meridian. Activate Project Sentinel. Bring the fleet online. And someone get me a direct line to the Council. Ma'am? Lieutenant Hayes questioned. What are you going to tell them? Zara's reflection in the glass smiled back at her, fierce and unafraid. I'm going to give them a chance to leave peacefully. The line in the stars. Ambassador Theron Kane had never been more nervous in his 30-year diplomatic career. The Council had selected him for this mission because of his experience negotiating with difficult species, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood in the briefing room of the Council flagship Eternal Judgment, surrounded by holographic projections of the Council's high command. The humans have responded to our ultimatum, announced Archon Velthor, a towering crystalline being whose species, the Xinthians, had founded the Council millennia ago. Their response is unexpected. The hologram shifted, showing Commander Zara Meridian standing confidently in what appeared to be a military command center. Her message played and Theron felt his blood run cold. To the Galactic Council, Zara began, her voice calm but edged with steel. We have received your ultimatum and find it unacceptable. Humanity will not dismantle its defenses. We will not surrender our sovereignty. We will not submit to foreign rule. Gasps echoed through the Council chamber. No species had ever refused their directive so directly. Zara continued. However, we are not unreasonable. We propose an alternative. Recognize Earth as an independent sovereign world. Establish diplomatic relations on equal terms. Allow us to prove ourselves worthy of joining the galactic community through our actions, not through subjugation. She leaned forward, her green eyes blazing with intensity. But understand this clearly, if you attempt to enforce your containment protocols, we will consider it an act of war. And we will respond accordingly. The message ended. The silence in the Council chamber stretched for long seconds. Preposterous, roared General Krax, a reptilian warrior from the Dravik Imperium. This infant species dares threaten the Council? I say we execute containment immediately and teach them the price of defiance. Agreed, hissed Councillor Sifra, her serpentine form coiling with agitation. They must learn their place. But Archon Velthor raised a crystalline hand for silence. Ambassador Kane, you studied their transmissions most thoroughly. What is your assessment? Theron chose his words carefully. Your Eminence, the humans are different from other species we've encountered. Their history is violent, yes, but also remarkably innovative. They went from basic flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. They split the atom before they achieved space travel. They're unpredictable. They're primitives with delusions of grandeur, General Krax snorted. What could they possibly do against the might of the Council? That's precisely what concerns me, Theron replied. We don't know what they can do. Our observers have reported unusual energy signatures near their outer planets, but we dismissed them as experimental failures. What if we were wrong? You suggest they have weapons we're unaware of? Councillor Sifra's eyes narrowed. I suggest we don't truly know what we're dealing with. Permission to request a reconnaissance mission before we commit to containment. Archon Velthor considered this. Very well. Take the scout fleet. Assess their actual capabilities. But understand, Ambassador, if they prove to be as primitive as we believe, containment will proceed. The law exists for a reason. We cannot allow another Category 5 species to threaten galactic peace. 3 days later, Ambassador Kane's scout fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12 ships, each crewed by experienced officers, their sensors sweeping for any sign of human defensive capabilities. "Sir, detecting multiple satellites in orbit around the third planet," reported Lieutenant Vex. "Primitive communication arrays, nothing weaponized." Theron relaxed slightly. Perhaps the humans had been bluffing after all. Then every alarm on the bridge screamed at once. "Contacts! Multiple contacts!" Vex shouted. 40-plus warships emerging from the asteroid belt. How did we not detect them? On the main view screen, humanity's hidden fleet materialized. Sleek warships, smaller than Council vessels but moving with predatory grace. They formed a defensive wall between the scout fleet and Earth, their weapons arrays charging with an ominous blue glow. A transmission cut through the Council's channels. Commander Meridian's face appeared, calm and collected. "Council Scout Fleet, this is Commander Zara Meridian of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human sovereign space without authorization. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately." General Krax, observing from the flagship, laughed harshly. "Sovereign space? Ignore them, Ambassador. They're no threat." But Theron wasn't laughing. He was staring at his sensor readings with growing horror. "Those energy signatures. Those aren't plasma weapons. What are they?" "Sir, they're targeting us," Vex warned. "All ships report lock-ons." "This is your final warning," Zara's voice came through again. "Withdraw now, or we will demonstrate exactly why humanity survived to reach the stars." "They're bluffing," Krax insisted. "Fire a warning shot across their formation. Show them real power." Theron hesitated only a moment before giving the order. One of the scout ships fired a plasma bolt, deliberately aimed to pass in front of the human fleet, a display of superior firepower meant to intimidate. The bolt never completed its trajectory. A beam of brilliant white light lanced out from the lead human ship, striking the plasma bolt mid-flight and annihilating it completely. What in the void was that? Krax's confidence wavered. Analyzing, Lieutenant Vex's voice shook. "Sir, that was a directed energy weapon operating at 95% light speed. The power output." He trailed off, rechecking his readings. "Sir, that single shot contained more energy than our entire scout fleet generates in a standard day cycle." Zara's voice returned, harder now. "That was your warning shot. The next one won't miss." The human fleet began advancing, their formation perfect, their weapons blazing with barely contained power. Theron's tactical display showed something that chilled him to his core. The humans had positioned ships behind his fleet too, cutting off their retreat vector. They'd been tracked and surrounded before they even knew the enemy was there. "Ambassador, orders?" his captain asked urgently. Theron watched the human warships close in, their weapons fully charged, their commanders clearly ready and willing to fire. He thought about the 47 species of the Council, their vast fleets, their technological superiority. But he also thought about the dozens of destroyed civilizations in the Council's history, species that had underestimated their opponents and paid the ultimate price. "All ships, power down weapons," he ordered. "Begin withdrawal to the heliopause." "Ambassador." General Krax's protest crackled over the communication link. "You cannot retreat from primitives." "General, with respect, these primitives just demonstrated technology we don't possess and tactical superiority we didn't anticipate. I will not sacrifice my crews to prove a point." Theron turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to Commander Meridian." Zara's image appeared, her expression unreadable. "Commander, we are withdrawing as requested," Theron said carefully. "But understand, this changes nothing. The Council's ultimatum stands. You have 27 days remaining." "And understand this, Ambassador," Zara replied. "If you return with hostile intent, we won't stop at demonstrations. The Council has ruled the galaxy unopposed for so long, you've forgotten what real warfare looks like. Humanity hasn't. We've been practicing it on each other for 10,000 years." She leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Go back to your Council. Tell them that humanity draws a line in the stars right here, right now. Cross it and you'll discover why we're classified as a Category 5 threat." The transmission ended. As the scout fleet withdrew, Theron stared at the sensor readings showing the human warships returning to their hidden positions among the asteroids, vanishing as completely as ghosts. "Lieutenant Vex," he said quietly, "compile every bit of data we gathered. Energy signatures, ship configurations, tactical responses, everything." "Sir, what are you thinking?" Theron pulled up the historical records of every Council conflict, every war, every species they'd ever faced. None of them had weapons like what he just witnessed. None of them had hidden an entire military fleet so completely. None of them had moved with such precise coordination. "I'm thinking," he said slowly, "that the Council is about to make the biggest mistake in its history." The Council divided. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 3,000 years, a monument to cooperation and peace. Today it felt more like a powder keg ready to explode. Ambassador Theron Kane stood at the speaker's podium, his report on the human encounter displayed across every screen in the vast chamber. Impossible. Councillor Rethvar, a gaseous being contained in an environmental suit, pulsed with agitation. "You claim these humans possess weapons surpassing our own? They've barely left their home system." "I claim nothing," Theron replied steadily. "I report what my sensors recorded. The data doesn't lie." Archon Velthor studied the energy signatures with his crystalline form refracting light into rainbow patterns, a sign of deep contemplation among his species. "These readings are extraordinary. If accurate, humanity has discovered a method of energy concentration we've theorized but never achieved. Then we eliminate them before they become an even greater threat." General Krax slammed his clawed fist against his console. "Strike now before they perfect their technology." "Or," suggested Councillor Mira Chin, a feline humanoid from the Feliner Collective, "we reconsider our approach. Perhaps the humans deserve a chance to prove themselves." The chamber erupted in argument. The 47 species of the Council had rarely been so divided. Some advocated for immediate military action, others for diplomatic engagement, while a few suggested simply tightening the quarantine and waiting another century. Theron watched the chaos unfold with growing concern. He'd spent decades studying galactic history and he recognized the pattern. The Council had faced Category 5 species before: the Exithar, the Meridian Collective, the Void Dwellers. Each time they'd relied on overwhelming force to contain the threat. Each time it had worked, until it hadn't. "If I may address the Council," a new voice cut through the arguments. The chamber fell silent as High Tactician Oren Blackwood stepped forward. He was human, one of the few Earth citizens who'd been allowed limited contact with the Council as part of the observation protocols. "You dare speak here?" General Krax growled. "Your species is the subject of these proceedings." "Which is precisely why I should speak," Oren replied calmly. He was an older man, his hair silver, his face weathered by years of secret negotiations. "The Council is making decisions based on incomplete information. Allow me to fill in the gaps." Archon Velthor gestured for him to continue. Oren pulled up a holographic timeline of human history. 300 years ago, when your observer ships first appeared, humanity faced a choice. We could panic, we could surrender, or we could prepare. We chose the third option. Images flashed across the screens: construction facilities hidden in asteroid fields, research stations in the outer system, training academies on the moons of Saturn. For 3 centuries, every nation on Earth contributed to Project Sentinel, Oren continued. Not because we wanted war, but because we refused to be helpless. We studied every transmission you sent, every piece of technology we could observe from a distance. And we learned. "You spied on us," Councillor Sifra hissed. "We observed you just as you observed us," Oren corrected. "The difference is we used what we learned. Your plasma weapons taught us about energy manipulation. Your faster-than-light drives taught us about spatial compression. Your gravitational shields taught us about field harmonics. We took your principles and pushed them further." He pulled up schematics that made several Council members lean forward in shock. "Our directed energy weapons use a cascade fusion reaction that your scientists abandoned centuries ago as too unstable. We made it work. Our stealth technology exploits a sensor blind spot in your detection arrays that you never bothered to fix. Our ships use fusion cores you'd consider dangerously overpowered." "Why are you telling us this?" Theron asked. "Because I want you to understand what you're facing if you choose war," Oren said bluntly. "Humanity didn't build weapons to threaten you. We built them because throughout our history, every civilization that couldn't defend itself was conquered or destroyed. We won't be either." General Krax stood, his massive form towering over the assembly. "These revelations only confirm what I've said from the beginning. The humans are too dangerous to be left free. I move for immediate military action, full containment protocols authorized by force." "Seconded," called out Councillor Rethvar. "Wait," Councillor Mira raised her paw. "High Tactician Blackwood, you say your species built these weapons for defense. Will you use them for defense only?" Oren met her gaze. "That depends entirely on whether the Council forces us to defend ourselves. Commander Meridian made our position clear. Recognize our sovereignty and we'll pursue peaceful relations. Attack us and we'll fight back with everything we have. An ultimatum within an ultimatum, Archon Velthor observed. How very human. The voting began. Each council member cast their decision: military intervention, diplomatic negotiation, or extended quarantine. Theron watched the tallies appear, his heart sinking as the numbers climbed. 24 votes for immediate military action. 17 for diplomatic engagement. 6 for extended quarantine. War had won by a simple majority. The decision is made, Archon Velthor announced, his voice heavy with the weight of history. The council fleet will assemble. In 20 days, we will enforce our containment protocols by force if necessary. You're making a mistake, Orin warned. A catastrophic one. The mistake would be allowing a Category 5 species to arm itself unchecked, General Krax retorted. We've tolerated human independence for 3 centuries while they prepared for war. That tolerance ends now. As the assembly disbanded, Theron found himself walking alongside Councillor Mira through the crystalline corridors of the council station. You voted for diplomacy, he observed. As did you, she replied. We're in the minority now. The fleet will assemble and the generals will have their war. Can I ask you something? Theron stopped walking. Do you believe the humans can actually fight the council to a standstill? Myra's feline eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect or fear. I've studied every species we've ever contained. None of them unified their entire planet in preparation for our arrival. None of them spent 3 centuries building weapons in secret. None of them ever refused our ultimatum. That's not an answer. No, she agreed. But here's what frightens me, Ambassador. The humans have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire existence. War isn't an aberration for them, it's their natural state. And now, for the first time in their history, they're completely united against an external threat. She began walking again, her tail swishing with agitation. The Council's fleet has 8,000 warships. We outnumber them 200 to 1. Our technology is proven across 1,000 conflicts. By every logical measure, we should crush them effortlessly. But, Theron prompted. But logic doesn't account for desperation, ingenuity, or sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. And humanity seems to possess all 3 in abundance. Back on Earth, Commander Zara Meridian received the news via encrypted transmission. 20 days until the Council fleet arrived. 20 days to prepare for a war that would decide humanity's fate. She stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human warship, every defensive platform, every weapon system they'd spent 3 centuries building. Admiral Osei, President Volkov, Premier Zhang, and Secretary General Chen stood with her. They outnumber us significantly, Admiral Osei stated the obvious. Even with our technological advantages, the math isn't favorable. Then we change the equation, Zara replied. She pulled up a tactical display of the solar system. The Council expects a conventional battle, fleet versus fleet, ships exchanging fire until one side surrenders. We're not going to give them that battle. What do you have in mind? Chen asked. Zara's smile was cold and calculating. The Council has ruled through overwhelming force for millennia. They're accustomed to enemies that fight on their terms. But humanity wrote the book on asymmetric warfare. We're going to use every advantage we have: surprise, mobility, unconventional tactics. We're going to make them fight our war, not theirs. She began laying out her strategy, and with each detail, the expressions around the table shifted from concern to grim determination. It was an audacious plan, relying on speed, deception, and a deep understanding of Council doctrine. This could work, President Volkov said slowly. Or it could get us all killed. Those have always been humanity's only 2 options, Zara replied. The question is whether we're willing to risk everything for our freedom. When you put it that way, Premier Zhang said with a slight smile, there's really only one answer. 20 days to prepare. 20 days until the Council fleet arrived expecting to find a primitive species cowering in submission. They were going to be very disappointed. The approaching storm. The void between stars had never seemed so vast or so threatening. Fleet Marshal Torvin Carr stood on the bridge of the Divine Retribution, flagship of the Council Armada, watching hundreds of warships align in formation. 8,000 ships, crews totaling over 3 million beings, all converging on one small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. It should have been a simple operation. It should have been over in hours. But the memory of Ambassador Kane's report kept nagging at Torvin's tactical mind. The humans had surprised them once. Could they do it again? Marshall, his tactical officer, a young Scythian named Vexcara, approached with a data pad. Final fleet disposition is complete. The assault wings are ready to establish the containment field. Once it's active, nothing can enter or leave the Sol system. And if the humans resist? Then we have authorization to neutralize their military assets with minimal civilian casualties. Vexcara hesitated. Marshal, if I may speak freely? Torvin gestured for him to continue. I've studied the human combat data from Ambassador Kane's encounter. Their response time was extraordinary. They detected our scout fleet before we detected them. Their weapons demonstrated power levels we can't match individually. And their tactical coordination suggests a level of military sophistication we weren't expecting. You're concerned we're underestimating them. I'm concerned we're treating this like every other containment operation when the humans have proven they're anything but typical. Torvin appreciated the honesty. He'd been having similar thoughts. Your concerns are noted, Vexcara. But we have 8,000 ships. They have, at most, 100. Even with superior weapons, the mathematics don't favor them. What Torvin didn't say was that he'd requested permission to open diplomatic channels one more time before the fleet arrived. The Council High Command had denied his request. The vote had been taken. The decision was final. War would be. On Earth, the final preparations were underway. Every military installation was on high alert. Every civilian shelter was stocked and ready. Every person on the planet knew what was coming. Commander Zara Meridian walked through the hangar bay of Osiris Station, reviewing her pilots one last time. These men and women would be humanity's first line of defense, and possibly its last. She stopped before Captain Ryder Cross, her best pilot and closest friend. Ready for this? She asked. Ryder's grin was pure confidence. Born ready, Commander. Those council ships won't know what hit them. Don't get cocky, Zara warned. They have numbers and experience on their side. Yeah, but we have something they don't, Ryder replied. We're fighting for our home. For our families. For our right to exist. That's worth 100 fancy warships. Zara moved through the ranks, offering words of encouragement, seeing the mixture of fear and determination in every face. These pilots had trained their entire lives for this moment. Some had been born after the Council's first observation ships appeared. They'd grown up knowing this day might come. In the simulation rooms, younger pilots ran through combat scenarios endlessly. Lieutenant Maya Reeves, barely 22 years old, had achieved the highest scores in the Academy's history. Her reflexes were inhuman, her tactical thinking brilliant. She would lead Gold Squadron, the fastest and most aggressive unit in humanity's fleet. Lieutenant, Zara called out as Maya finished another perfect simulation run. A word. They stood by the observation window, Earth visible in all its fragile beauty below. I want you to know, Zara began, that what we're about to do is unprecedented. No species has ever challenged the Council successfully. The odds are against us. Then we'll make new odds, Maya replied with youthful certainty. My grandmother used to tell me about the old wars back before the Council appeared. She said humanity's greatest victories always came when everyone thought we'd lose. Something about how we refused to quit even when we should. Stubborn to the end, Zara agreed with a slight smile. That's what we're counting on. In the command centers across Earth, military leaders coordinated with scientific teams. Dr. Sarah Kimura and her xenobiology unit had spent weeks analyzing every piece of Council data they possessed, looking for weaknesses in their technology, patterns in their tactics. The approaching storm. The void between stars had never seemed so vast or so threatening. Fleet Marshal Torvin Carr stood on the bridge of the Divine Retribution, flagship of the Council Armada, watching hundreds of warships align in formation. 8,000 ships, crews totaling over 3 million beings, all converging on one small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. It should have been a simple operation. It should have been over in hours. But the memory of Ambassador Kane's report kept nagging at Torvin's tactical mind. The humans had surprised them once. Could they do it again? Marshall, his tactical officer, a young Scythian named Vexcara, approached with a data pad. Final fleet disposition is complete. The assault wings are ready to establish the containment field. Once it's active, nothing can enter or leave the Sol system. And if the humans resist? Then we have authorization to neutralize their military assets with minimal civilian casualties. Vexcara hesitated. Marshal, if I may speak freely? Torvin gestured for him to continue. I've studied the human combat data from Ambassador Kane's encounter. Their response time was extraordinary. They detected our scout fleet before we detected them. Their weapons demonstrated power levels we can't match individually. And their tactical coordination suggests a level of military sophistication we weren't expecting. You're concerned we're underestimating them. I'm concerned we're treating this like every other containment operation when the humans have proven they're anything but typical. Torvin appreciated the honesty. He'd been having similar thoughts. Your concerns are noted, Vexkara. But we have 8,000 ships. They have, at most, 100. Even with superior weapons, the mathematics don't favor them. What Torvin didn't say was that he'd requested permission to open diplomatic channels one more time before the fleet arrived. The Council High Command had denied his request. The vote had been taken. The decision was final. War would be. On Earth, the final preparations were underway. Every military installation was on high alert. Every civilian shelter was stocked and ready. Every person on the planet knew what was coming. Commander Zara Meridian walked through the hangar bay of Osiris Station, reviewing her pilots one last time. These men and women would be humanity's first line of defense, and possibly its last. She stopped before Captain Ryder Cross, her best pilot and closest friend. "Ready for this?" she asked. Ryder's grin was pure confidence. "Born ready, Commander. Those Council ships won't know what hit them." "Don't get cocky," Zara warned. "They have numbers and experience on their side." "Yeah, but we have something they don't," Ryder replied. "We're fighting for our home. For our families. For our right to exist. That's worth 100 fancy warships." Zara moved through the ranks, offering words of encouragement, seeing the mixture of fear and determination in every face. These pilots had trained their entire lives for this moment. Some had been born after the Council's first observation ships appeared. They'd grown up knowing this day might come. In the simulation rooms, younger pilots ran through combat scenarios endlessly. Lieutenant Maya Reeves, barely 22 years old, had achieved the highest scores in the Academy's history. Her reflexes were inhuman, her tactical thinking brilliant. She would lead Gold Squadron, the fastest and most aggressive unit in humanity's fleet. "Lieutenant," Zara called out as Maya finished another perfect simulation run. "A word." They stood by the observation window, Earth visible in all its fragile beauty below. "I want you to know," Zara began, "that what we're about to do is unprecedented. No species has ever challenged the Council successfully. The odds are against us." "Then we'll make new odds," Maya replied with youthful certainty. "My grandmother used to tell me about the old wars back before the Council appeared. She said humanity's greatest victories always came when everyone thought we'd lose. Something about how we refused to quit even when we should." "Stubborn to the end," Zara agreed with a slight smile. "That's what we're counting on." In the command centers across Earth, military leaders coordinated with scientific teams. Dr. Sarah Kimura and her xenobiology unit had spent weeks analyzing every piece of Council data they possessed, looking for weaknesses in their technology, patterns in their tactics. First contact, first blood. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly on schedule, their massive vessels dropping into normal space at the edge of Sol system like gods descending from Olympus. 8,000 warships, their hulls gleaming with energy shields, their weapons arrays charging with deadly purpose. Fleet Marshal Torvin Carr watched his tactical display with satisfaction. The formation was perfect, the fleet spread across several million cubic kilometers of space, ready to advance on Earth in an overwhelming wave of force. "Sir, scanning for human defensive positions," Vexkara reported. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion. "Sir, I'm not detecting any ships near Earth. Their orbital platforms are active, but no fleet presence." "Expand the search," Torvin ordered. "They must be hiding behind their moon or in high orbit." "Scanning. Sir, still nothing." "Wait." Vexkara's hands flew across his console. "Detecting multiple contacts at Neptune's orbit. Distance, 4.2 billion kilometers. Sir, that's the human fleet. They're at the outer edge of the system." Torvin leaned forward, studying the tactical data. 42 human warships hung in space near the ice giant, their energy signatures blazing like defiant torches in the darkness. "They came out to meet us," he said slowly. "Foolish. They've abandoned the defensive advantage of their home planet to face us in open space. Their courage is admirable, but it changes nothing. We outnumber them nearly 200 to 1. Should we halt the advance and offer surrender terms?" Vexkara asked. "No. The time for diplomacy ended when they refused the Council's ultimatum. All ships maintain formation. Advance at 1/4 speed. Prepare to engage." The massive Council fleet began its inexorable march toward the inner system, a wall of steel and fire that seemed unstoppable. On the bridge of her flagship Defiant Dawn, Commander Zara Meridian watched the enemy approach with cold calculation. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Everything depended on the Council doing exactly what she expected. Range? She asked calmly. 2 million kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Hayes reported. They're maintaining standard formation, exactly as Dr. Kimura predicted. Captain Cross, are gold and silver squadrons in position? Ryder's voice crackled over the comm. Affirmative, Commander. We're tucked nice and cozy in Neptune's rings. They can't see us through all this ice and rock. Perfect. Zara studied the tactical display, watching the Council's advance. They were moving cautiously, but they were moving. All ships, weapons free on my mark. Remember, precision over volume. Make every shot count. The Council fleet crossed into weapons range. Torvin watched his screens as targeting solutions locked onto the human vessels. It would be a massacre, but a necessary one. The humans had to learn their place in the galactic order. All batteries, fire at will, he commanded. 1,000 plasma bolts erupted from the Council's front line, a wall of superheated death racing toward the human fleet at nearly the speed of light. And the human ships vanished. What? Torvin leaped from his chair. Where did they go? They jumped, sir. Vexcara's voice pitched higher with shock. Short-range FTL jumps. They scattered across 300,000 kilometers. The human warships reappeared in a dozen different locations, and before the Council could react, they opened fire. Brilliant white beams lanced across space, not toward the Council ships themselves but toward something far more critical, their formation nodes. They're targeting our command ships, someone shouted. It was true. While the main Council fleet was composed of standard warships, the formation relied on specialized command vessels that coordinated the fleet's movements. The humans had identified them somehow and were systematically destroying them. 3 command ships exploded in rapid succession, their shields overwhelmed by the focused human fire. The Council's perfect formation began to fragment as ships lost their coordination signals. Return fire. All ships return fire. Torvin ordered. But the humans weren't waiting around to be shot at. They jumped again, micro-FTL hops that took them across the battlefield in eye blinks. The Council's weapons, designed for conventional space combat, couldn't track targets that teleported. Sir, they're using Neptune's magnetic field to mask their jump signatures. Vexcara reported. We can't predict where they'll appear. Zara allowed herself a tight smile. The Council had faster-than-light drives, but they used them for travel between star systems, not in combat. It had never occurred to them to weaponize short-range jumps. Humanity had spent 3 centuries perfecting the technique, designing drives that could make hundreds of microjumps before needing to recharge. Gold Squadron, you're up, she transmitted. From Neptune's rings, Captain Ryder Cross led his elite squadron in a screaming attack run. 50 smaller fighters, each crewed by humanity's best pilots, erupted from concealment. They were tiny compared to the Council's capital ships, but they were fast, maneuverable, and armed with weapons that punched far above their weight class. Lieutenant Maya Reeves flew point, her reflexes guiding her ship through a deadly ballet of plasma fire and energy beams. She locked onto a Council destroyer, fired a sustained burst from her directed energy cannons, and watched the enemy shields collapse under the assault. Splash 1, she called out, banking hard as return fire blazed past her cockpit. Form up on Reeves. Ryder commanded. Attack pattern Delta, focus fire on their engine clusters. The fighters swarmed the Council fleet like angry hornets, too small and fast to effectively target, their weapons devastating at close range. They struck at the Council ships' engines, leaving crippled vessels drifting while their companions struggled to protect them. Torvin watched in growing horror as his fleet's casualty reports mounted. 12 ships destroyed. 26 crippled. And they'd barely scratched the human forces. This is impossible, he breathed. How are they doing this? Sir, new contacts. Vexcara's voice cracked. Multiple missile signatures inbound from the asteroid belt. Thousands of them. The missiles weren't traditional projectiles. They were AI-guided drones, each one capable of independent thought and equipped with fusion warheads. They wove through the Council fleet, dodging point defense fire, seeking out vulnerable targets. Explosions blossomed across the battlefield as the missiles found their marks. The Council's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were less effective against physical impacts backed by nuclear fire. Retreat. Torvin ordered, his pride crumbling before tactical reality. All ships fall back to the heliopause. Reform at rally point Omega. But retreating from an enemy that could teleport was easier said than done. As the Council ships tried to disengage, human forces appeared in their path, cutting off escape routes, forcing them to fight through walls of directed energy fire. "Sir, we've lost 47 ships," Vexcara reported. "Another 100 are damaged. Casualties are approaching 300,000. Torvin felt sick. 300,000 dead or wounded in less than an hour of combat. And the humans had lost exactly 3 ships. "Continue the withdrawal," he said quietly. "Get our people out of here." Zara watched the Council fleet retreat, their perfect formation in shambles, their ships scattered across millions of kilometers. She wanted to pursue, to press the advantage, but she knew better. They'd won this opening engagement, but the war was far from over. "All ships hold position," she ordered. "Do not pursue. Let them go." "Commander, we have them on the run," Ryder protested. "And they still have over 7,000 functional warships," Zara countered. "We bloodied their nose, Captain. We showed them we can fight. But if we overextend now, they'll crush us. Let them retreat. Let them think about what just happened. And let them wonder what else we have waiting for them." As the Council fleet limped away, humanity's forces regrouped near Neptune, their weapons still charged, their spirits soaring. They'd done the impossible. They'd faced the galaxy's mightiest military force and won the first battle. But both sides knew the truth. This was just the beginning. The real war was still to come. The Council's response. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Holographic projections of the battle played on every screen, showing Council ships exploding, retreating, dying under human fire. The 47 species watched in stunned silence as their supposedly invincible fleet was torn apart by a force they dismissed as primitive. "This is a disaster." Councillor Rethvar's gaseous form roiled with agitation. "How could this happen? How could we lose to these apes?" Fleet Marshal Torvin stood before the assembly, his uniform scorched from the battle, his pride in tatters. "The humans demonstrated capabilities we didn't anticipate. Their short-range FTL combat tactics, their directed energy weapons, their coordinated strike strategies, all of it was beyond our intelligence estimates." "Beyond our estimates?" General Krax roared. "You lost 50 ships and retreated from an enemy with 42 vessels. This isn't a failure of intelligence. This is a failure of leadership." "General," Archon Velthor's crystalline voice cut through the anger, "Marshal Torvin did what was necessary to preserve his fleet. Had he continued the engagement, casualties would have been catastrophic." "They already are catastrophic." Krax slammed his fist down. 300,000 casualties. The Council hasn't suffered losses like this in 8 centuries. Ambassador Theron Kane stood, his expression grave. "The Marshal is correct about one thing. We underestimated the humans. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's revolutionary. Those microjump drives alone could change the nature of space warfare forever." "Then we need to change our approach," Councillor Mira spoke up. "Clearly, conventional tactics won't work against them. We need to adapt. Or we need to escalate," Krax countered darkly. "The Council possesses weapons we've kept locked away for centuries. Planet crackers. Stellar disruptors. Tools designed to eliminate existential threats." The chamber fell silent. Those weapons were forbidden, used only once in Council history against the Void Dwellers, a species so dangerous that nothing else could stop them. The very mention of them was taboo. "You propose genocide," Councillor Mira said quietly. "I propose survival," Krax replied. "The humans have proven they're exactly what we feared, a Category 5 threat with the will and means to challenge Council authority. If we don't stop them now, what happens when they perfect their technology? When they spread beyond their system? When other species see their defiance and think they can do the same?" "He has a point," Councillor Sifra admitted reluctantly. "The humans aren't just fighting us, they're challenging the entire galactic order. If they succeed, if they prove that resistance is possible, it could destabilize everything we've built." Archon Velthor's crystalline form pulsed with deep thought. For long moments no one spoke, waiting for his judgment. Finally he addressed the assembly. "The Council stands at a crossroads," he began. "We can escalate to forbidden weapons and potentially destroy a species that has shown remarkable courage and ingenuity. Or we can pause, reassess, and consider that perhaps our approach to Category 5 species has been flawed." "Flawed?" General Krax sputtered. "Our protocols have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Peace achieved through fear and overwhelming force, Theron interjected. Marshal Torvin, may I ask you a question? When you engaged the humans, did they attack your retreat? Did they pursue your damaged ships? Torvin shook his head. No. They held position and allowed us to withdraw. Commander Meridian could have inflicted far greater casualties, but she chose not to. Why would she show mercy? Counselor Rethvar asked suspiciously. Perhaps because she's not the monster we've painted her species to be, Theron suggested. Perhaps she's trying to send a different message, that humans can fight, yes, but also that they can show restraint, that they can be reasoned with. Or perhaps she was simply conserving ammunition, Krax scoffed. Archon Velthor raised a hand for silence. I propose we send an envoy, someone to negotiate directly with this Commander Meridian, to understand what humanity truly wants. If there is a path to peace, we must explore it before we resort to weapons of extinction. And if the humans refuse to negotiate? Zephyr asked. Then we will have proven they are as unreasonable as General Krax claims, and more drastic measures may be justified. But until then, I will not authorize genocide against a species that has only defended itself against our aggression. The vote was called. This time it was closer, 25 for negotiation, 22 for escalation. Diplomacy had won, but barely. Ambassador Kane, Velthor turned to Theron, you will lead the diplomatic mission. Take the Silver Horizon, approach Earth under a flag of truce, and see if peace is possible. Back on Earth, Commander Zara Meridian was dealing with her own council. The victory at Neptune had electrified the planet, but the military leadership knew the truth. They'd won a battle, not the war. The council still has overwhelming numerical superiority, Admiral Osei pointed out. We can't fight them ship for ship indefinitely. We don't need to, Zara replied, studying casualty reports. 3 ships lost, 74 personnel dead, 200 wounded. Each loss hurt, but they'd achieved their objective. We need to make the cost of conquering us too high to justify. Every battle they fight, every ship they lose, every casualty they suffer, it all adds up. Eventually, someone on the council will ask if subjugating one stubborn species is worth the price. And if they decide it is? President Volkov asked. Then we keep fighting until they change their minds or we're all dead, Zara said bluntly. Those are the only 2 options. Surrender isn't on the table. Secretary General Chen pulled up intelligence reports. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the retreating council fleet. Dr. Kimura thinks they might be bringing in heavier weapons. How much heavier? Premier Zhang asked. Dr. Kimura's hologram appeared, her expression troubled. Our analysis suggests they're capable of weapons that could sterilize entire planets. We found references in their historical databases to something called stellar disruptors, devices that can destabilize a star's fusion process. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. The council could destroy the sun itself if they chose to. Then we need to make sure they never choose to, Zara said firmly. We need to show them we're not mindless aggressors. That we're willing to talk, to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. After we just destroyed 50 of their ships? Admiral Osei raised an eyebrow. Especially after that, Zara replied. We've proven we can hurt them. Now we need to prove we don't want to. That humanity is capable of both war and peace, that we deserve a seat at the galactic table as equals, not subjects. A priority alert flashed across the displays. Commander, we have an incoming vessel, Lieutenant Hayes reported. Single ship, broadcasting council identification codes and a white flag? Zara leaned forward. A white flag? They're using human symbolism? Apparently someone on their side did their homework, Hayes replied. The ship is requesting permission to approach Earth for diplomatic talks. Everyone looked at Zara. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. They could refuse, continue fighting, prove they were as aggressive as the council feared. Or they could talk, show restraint, demonstrate that humanity could be more than just warriors. Grant them safe passage, Zara ordered. Route them to Lunar Station Osiris. And get me Ambassador Chen from the Foreign Ministry. If they want to talk, we'll talk. But we'll do it on our terms, from a position of strength. The Silver Horizon approached Earth cautiously, its weapons powered down, its shields at minimum. On the bridge, Ambassador Theron Kane watched the blue planet grow larger, struck by its beauty. It seemed impossible that this peaceful-looking world had produced warriors capable of bloodying the Council's nose. Sir, we're being hailed, his communications officer reported. Human Command is offering us safe passage to their lunar station. Accept their offer, Theron ordered. and transmit our diplomatic credentials. Let's see if we can end this war before it truly begins. As the ship descended toward the moon, Theron prepared himself for the most important negotiation of his career. The fate of billions, human and alien alike, rested on what happened in the next few hours. On Osiris Station, Commander Zara Meridian watched the Council ship dock, her mind racing through scenarios and outcomes. She'd spent 3 centuries preparing for war. Now she had to prepare for something potentially more dangerous: peace on humanity's terms. Remember, she told her staff, we negotiate from strength, but we negotiate in good faith. We're not trying to dominate the galaxy, we're just trying to be free. And if they can't accept that? Captain Ryder asked. Zara's expression hardened. Then we'll teach them the same lesson we've been teaching everyone throughout human history, that freedom isn't given, it's taken. And we're very, very good at taking what's ours. The airlock opened. Ambassador Theron Kane stepped through, and the future hung in the balance. The Treaty of Osiris. The negotiation room on Lunar Station Osiris was deliberately designed to put both sides on equal footing. Hexagonal, with no head of the table, it featured windows showing both Earth and the stars beyond, a reminder of what was at stake. Commander Zara Meridian entered from one door as Ambassador Theron Kane entered from another. They studied each other for a long moment. Theron saw a warrior, scarred by battle, her eyes sharp with intelligence and caution. Zara saw a diplomat, worn by years of service, carrying the weight of his civilization's mistakes. Commander Meridian, Theron began, thank you for agreeing to meet. Ambassador Kane, Zara replied, gesturing to a seat. Thank you for coming without an army this time. Theron winced at the barb but took it in stride. Touché. Though I should mention I argued against military action from the beginning. Yet your fleet still came. Zara sat across from him. The Council sent 8,000 warships to force us into submission. Forgive me if I'm skeptical of your peaceful intentions now. Fair enough. Theron pulled out a data pad, placing it on the table between them. Let me be direct, Commander. The Council underestimated humanity. Catastrophically. You've proven you can fight, proven you have weapons and tactics we can't easily counter. You've made your point. Our point, Zara said quietly, wasn't to prove we can fight. It was to prove we won't be conquered. There's a difference. I understand that now, Theron said. But here's what you need to understand, the Council is divided. Some members, like myself and Counselor Mira, believe you deserve sovereignty and a chance to join the galactic community as equals. Others, like General Krax, believe you're too dangerous to be left free and are pushing for escalation to weapons that could destroy your entire solar system. Zara's expression didn't change, but Theron saw her knuckles whiten as she gripped the table. You're threatening genocide? I'm warning you that genocide is a possibility if we can't find a diplomatic solution, Theron corrected. The Council has weapons they haven't used in centuries, weapons designed to eliminate existential threats. Right now the vote against using them is narrow. Another battle like Neptune, more Council casualties, and that vote could swing the other way. So you're saying we won too decisively? Zara's voice dripped with irony. We should have let you conquer us gently? I'm saying, Theron leaned forward, his expression earnest, that you've proven your strength. Now you need to prove your wisdom. Show the Council that humanity can be more than just warriors. Show them you can be partners, allies, contributors to galactic civilization. Zara stood, walking to the window overlooking Earth. 8 billion people down there, living their lives, trusting her to protect them. She'd prepared for war, trained for it, embraced it when necessary. But her parents had dreamed of peace, of humanity finding its place among the stars through cooperation, not conquest. What does the Council want? She asked finally. Recognition of Council authority in galactic affairs. Theron began listing terms. A commitment to non-aggression toward other species. Oversight of your military expansion to ensure you don't become a threat to neighboring systems. And participation in Council peacekeeping operations to demonstrate your willingness to contribute to galactic security. Zara turned back, her expression hardening. And in exchange? Sovereignty over your solar system. Full diplomatic recognition as an independent species. Access to Council trade networks and technology exchanges. A seat on the Council itself, the first new species to join in over 200 years. It was more than Zara had dared hope for. But there was a catch. There was always a catch. What's the real price? She asked. What are you not telling me? Theron admired her perception. The Council wants access to your military technology. Not to copy it but to understand it. Your microjump drives, your directed energy weapons, They represent a paradigm shift in warfare. If other species acquire them without council knowledge, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. You want us to hand over the weapons that just saved us from subjugation, Zara said flatly. I want you to share technology in exchange for membership in the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known, Theron countered. Think of what you could gain: knowledge from 47 species, access to resources beyond anything Earth possesses, protection from external threats. Yes, you'd have to share your military innovations, but you'd receive technologies in return that could transform your civilization. Zara paced the room, her tactical mind weighing options and outcomes. I need to consult with my government. Of course, Theron said. But Commander, I need to be honest with you about the timeline. The Council fleet is regrouping. General Krax is pushing for another assault within days. If we can reach an agreement quickly, I can get it ratified and stop the attack. But if negotiations drag on, the Warhawks will claim diplomacy has failed, and the shooting will start again. Then let me be honest with you, Ambassador. Zara met his eyes. Humanity won't accept subjugation under any terms. We won't allow Council warships to patrol our system. We won't submit to military oversight that treats us like children. And we sure as hell won't give up our weapons while surrounded by species that already tried to conquer us once. Then what will you accept? Theron asked, frustration creeping into his voice. Zara pulled out her own data pad, bringing up terms she and Secretary General Chen had drafted during the flight from Earth. Mutual recognition. The Council acknowledges our sovereignty, we acknowledge Council authority in interspecies affairs. Technology exchange programs but voluntary, not mandatory. A defensive alliance, not a subjugation pact. And if the Council wants to understand our military technology, they can send observers to joint exercises, not demand we hand over our weapons. Theron read through the terms, his expression thoughtful. These are actually reasonable. More reasonable than I expected, honestly. Did you think we'd demand to rule the galaxy ourselves? Zara asked with a slight smile. After Neptune? Some of my colleagues certainly feared that, Theron admitted. But Commander, there's one more thing we need to address. The Council needs assurance that humanity won't use its military capabilities aggressively. That you won't become conquerors yourselves. Then let me tell you something about humanity. Zara sat back down, her voice softer now. For most of our history we fought each other. Nation against nation, ideology against ideology, religion against religion. We were very good at it. But about 400 years ago something changed. We started asking ourselves if maybe, just maybe, cooperation worked better than conquest. If building together was smarter than tearing apart. She gestured toward Earth. When your observation ships appeared 300 years ago, it could have torn us apart. Instead, it united us. Every nation, every culture, every ideology agreed on one thing, that our right to exist as free beings was non-negotiable. We built an army, yes, but we also built a unified world government. We ended poverty, cured diseases, cleaned our environment. We became better than we were. So you're saying we should trust you? Theron asked. I'm saying you should judge us by our actions, not your fears, Zara replied. We could have slaughtered your retreating fleet at Neptune. We didn't. We could have refused this meeting, continued the fight. We didn't. We're here talking, trying to find peace because that's what we actually want. Not conquest. Not domination. Just the freedom to chart our own course among the stars. Theron was silent for a long moment, then he did something that surprised Zara. He smiled. You know what the greatest irony is, Commander? The Council classified you as a Category 5 threat because of your violent history. But that history, all that warfare and conflict, it taught you lessons most species never learn. You know the true cost of war because you've paid it over and over. That makes you more committed to peace than species that have never known real conflict. Does that mean you'll support our terms? It means I'll take them back to the Council and argue with everything I have that accepting them is the wisest course. Theron stood, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. But I can't promise success. There are still many who fear you, who believe that allowing humanity freedom is too dangerous. Zara shook his hand firmly. Then help me give them a reason to believe differently. Over the next 48 hours, as the Council fleet regrouped and debated their next move, Zara and Theron worked tirelessly to craft a treaty that both sides could accept. They brought in experts from both civilizations, human diplomats and alien negotiators, military strategists and peace advocates. The debates were fierce. General Krax argued that any treaty was a sign of weakness, that the Council should finish what they started and eliminate the human threat permanently. But Councillor Mira and others countered with data from Neptune, casualty projections if the war continued, economic costs, the risk of other species seeing the Council as oppressive conquerors rather than peacekeepers. Archon Velthor listened to all sides, his crystalline form reflecting the weight of the decision. Finally, he called for a vote on the Treaty of Osiris as it had come to be called. In the negotiation room, Zara and Theron waited for the results, the tension almost unbearable. Earth's entire military remained on high alert, ready to fight if diplomacy failed. The Council fleet held position at the edge of the system, weapons charged, prepared to enforce the Council's will by force if necessary. Theron's communicator chimed. He listened, his expression unreadable, then slowly smiled. The vote passed, he announced. 26 in favor, 21 opposed. The Treaty of Osiris is ratified. Humanity is recognized as an independent sovereign species with full diplomatic standing in the Galactic Council. Zara felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Relief. Not just relief but hope. Hope that her parents' dream of humanity reaching the stars peacefully might actually come true. There are conditions, Theron continued. Probationary status for the first 10 years. Regular diplomatic summits. Joint military exercises to build trust. But Commander, you did it. You won your freedom without destroying Earth in the process. We both won, Zara corrected. The Council gets to maintain its authority without committing genocide. Humanity gets its freedom without fighting a war we might have lost. Everyone walks away better than they were. Over the following weeks, the Treaty of Osiris was implemented. Council ships withdrew from Sol System. Human ambassadors arrived at Council stations to begin diplomatic relations. Technology exchange programs commenced, with human engineers eagerly studying alien innovations while Council scientists marveled at humanity's unique approaches to problems. Captain Ryder Cross and Lieutenant Maya Reeves led the first human squadron in joint exercises with Council forces. The alien pilots were shocked by human tactics, while the humans learned new maneuvers from species that had been flying starships for millennia. Rivalries turned into friendships as warriors from different worlds discovered they had more in common than they expected. Dr. Sarah Kimura established the first xenobiology research partnership, working with Council scientists to study life across the galaxy. Medical breakthroughs came rapidly as species shared knowledge freely. And on Osiris Station, Commander Zara Meridian watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. She'd trained for war her entire life, but she'd achieved something better: peace with dignity. Ambassador Theron Kane visited one final time before returning to Council space. You know, he said looking out at Earth, when I first came here I thought humanity was going to be the Council's greatest challenge. I was right, but not in the way I expected. How do you mean? Zara asked. I thought you'd challenge us militarily, force us to adapt our tactics and weapons. And you did. But the real challenge was moral. You forced the Council to confront our own assumptions about power and authority. You made us realize that respect earned through fear isn't real respect at all. He turned to face her. The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. We've grown comfortable, certain of our righteousness. You reminded us that freedom is a right, not a privilege granted by those in power. That's a lesson we needed to learn, even if it took a war to teach it. So what happens now? Zara asked. Now? Theron smiled. Now humanity joins the galaxy. Not as subjects, not as conquerors, but as partners. And I suspect the galaxy is going to be very different because of it. In a good way. After he left, Zara stood alone on the observation deck, watching Earth rotate below. Ships moved through the orbital lanes, human vessels and alien ones, working together, trading together, building together. Her communicator chimed. Secretary General Chen's face appeared. Commander, the Council has invited Earth to send a delegation to the next Galactic Summit. They want human input on security protocols, diplomatic standards, and they're asking for our help reforming their military doctrine. Zara laughed. They want the species they tried to conquer to teach them how to fight better? Apparently your tactics at Neptune impressed them more than they'd like to admit, Chen replied with a grin. So, interested in teaching old aliens new tricks? I suppose someone should, Zara said. After all, if we're going to be part of this civilization, we might as well help make it better. As the transmission ended, Zara thought about her parents, the astronomers who'd first spotted the Council's ships. They'd believed humanity's future was in the stars. They'd been right. But they'd given humanity something even more valuable than that belief. They'd given them a daughter who understood that true strength wasn't just the willingness to fight, but the wisdom to know when to stop fighting and start building instead. Earth's journey to the stars had begun with a warning and ended with a treaty. But the real story, the story of humanity learning to be part of something greater than itself while never surrendering what made it unique, that story was just beginning. And it was going to be magnificent.